Welcome to this week's Who the Folk podcast. I'm Lonnie Goldsmith, the editor of TCG Folk. This week I talk with Rachel Sher, who starts work this week as the new Director of Youth Engagement at Adath Jeshurun. We talk about what brought her back to the Twin Cities from New York, her history of youth engagement work, and looking forward to working with a new group of teens on this week's Who the Folk podcast. But before we hear from Rachel, this podcast is supported by the Afternoon School and Midrashah at the Talmud Torah of St. Paul, offering online supplementary Jewish education for students in grades 2 to 12. Great Jewish education from any location. Now enrolling for the fall. Learn more at ttsp.org/as-m. Rachel Sher, welcome to the Who the Folk podcast. Thank you for joining me.
You are so welcome. Thanks for having me.
You are the new, or I guess you haven't started yet. You have been announced as the new Director of Youth Engagement at Adath Jeshurun Congregation. So Mazel Tov.
Thank you.
On the appointment. It is very exciting. So I guess for starters, what was it about the opportunity that you saw it posted and you're like, that's for me?
Well, I grew up in Twin Cities, USY scene, I guess. Like I was very involved. I grew up at Beth Jacob and always loved USY and worked in USY for several years during and after college. And I'm currently out in New York. And so being out here is a really different synagogue culture and not a lot of like there wasn't USY at the synagogue I was working at. And just seeing that was open and a job open and something I love in the Twin Cities. I was like, oh my God, I have to do it. I have to see if I can get in there.
You've got experience. You mentioned you grew up at Beth Jacob. You've got experience at many of the synagogues in the Twin Cities over your time there before moving out to New York. What was it that I guess enticed you to move to New York for the position that you just left?
Well, definitely not the rats or the roaches or the subway, but definitely
you make it sound so enticing.
But I just over the course of the pandemic kind of got away career-wise from what I wanted to be doing, as I think probably a lot of people did, just because of, what was shutting down and what was available in terms of positions or what was essential work. And I got back into healthcare for a little bit, which, I wanted to be in Jewish youth work, but that was kind of just the way it shook out. And I had a really good friend actually whom I know from Herzl that worked out here in New York at this synagogue and said like, hey, our teen director job just opened up, like you should apply. And, I wasn't in my dream job at that point. So I was like, okay, why not? And I have a lot of really close friends that live out here and my best friend in the world lives out here. So I thought, okay, I'll try it.
The pull to come home was too strong though?
The pull to come home was strong. I have discovered since living out here that I'm really a lot more of a germaphobe than I thought. A lot more. like seeing rats every day is like I truly cannot.
No, I get that. I get that.
Yeah. Yeah. And since COVID, since COVID and moving out here, I think has really made me realize just like how clean and wonderful and green Minneapolis is. Cause I've been to New York to visit, but I've mostly been, when I visited before living out here, I was mostly in Upper East and Upper West Side, which is very different from where I'm living now in Brooklyn.
Okay.
So yeah, the pull to come home is strong. My whole family is in Minnesota. And yeah, it's just a way of life that I like a little bit more.
I don't blame you. I've visited New York a few times and it's a fine place to visit, but I think it takes just a particular type of person or personality to really be able to live there and thrive in that sort of chaos.
Yeah, it is. It is a lot of chaos. It is a lot of chaos, a lot of people, a lot of noise, and just a lot of stuff.
Just a lot. Just a lot.
Just a lot in general.
Yes, for sure. So growing up in sort of the USY world of Beth Jacob, what was it that led you sort of now as an adult to the idea of making a career out of that sort of youth group, Jewish youth group work?
Absolutely. I think that, and also in combination with summer camp, is kind of just how I learned. Like that's where I learned all of my life skills, right? Of making friends, of planning things to completion, right? Like if I was, because I was on the board in high school, if I was responsible for a program, if I, didn't do the work that needed to go into it, it wouldn't succeed. And so I learned those kind of skills, I think, very early on, and it's helped me so much in life. And I often feel like at places like camp and USY, the things that are just kind of innate in a workplace, like I don't know how I would have learned them otherwise. Just having gotten those skills so early of like, I don't know, I'm thinking about like the Big 10 that they teach Herzl staff, right? When we start, of like consistency and supporting your fellow staff and those types of things. Like, I just don't know how I would have internalized them so well if I didn't have those experiences so young.
I get that. And, I've talked with Herzl staff a lot over the course of many years. And I know that they've, one of the big things, talking points, at least in terms of things like recruiting staff and trying to get people to come back, is, to work there versus like an internship or something like that, is the idea that you get the types of skills you need working at camp that you won't get fetching coffee for somebody.
And more, right? Like you get lasting relationships that a lot of the time last a lifetime. And so to be able to provide that for someone else and for the next kind of generation of humans is something that is very special and near and dear to me.
What is it about the youth group culture in Minnesota that is appealing? Because I think that's sort of a different piece of the puzzle there, if you will.
Yeah.
There is something very special, especially with the USY culture in Minnesota. What do you think that is?
What do I think that is? I think that it is a priority there. Like it's not in other places. Like on the East Coast right now, it feels like a lot of youth group stuff is more of a means to an end, right? Of like, okay, I need to get these community service hours, so I'm going to come and volunteer at the synagogue. I need to prepare. I need to know everything for my bar mitzvah, so I'm going to come to classes. And then when that's done, it's over. When I get all my hours, I don't need to come anymore. And there's, and I guess I can't speak to like a lot of other areas in the country, and just in terms of like in EMSA region, everybody who is there wants to be there and wants to build relationships and see their friends. And they are, they're all, the kids are really invested in each other. And there's, I think, just such a culture of acceptance and of strong relationship building that's really special.
How do you think the last couple of years of the pandemic, and I think we're maybe coming out of it, hopefully coming out of it, but in terms of sort of the relationship building and the, program opportunities and challenges that you may be walking into, how do you think that those last couple of years have maybe affected the importance for this opportunity you have?
Well, I can't necessarily speak to how it's been the last 2 years, just since I haven't been there. But I think in the way that it has impacted everyone, having those opportunities to come back together and be with friends and create those relationships, of course, only if it's safe, is so important, because we have every single person in society, in American society, has been traumatized like repeatedly for the last for the last 2 years, and counting. And I think it's just so important to get through those experiences, to get through any sort of traumatic experience with friends and relationships and community. So I think it's more important than ever that these kids are able to be together in an environment that is kind of built just for them.
So you're gonna get back to Minnesota, what, early-ish June?
Mhm.
Mid-June? Is that the plan?
Early June.
Okay.
Yeah. Move-in date, June 1st.
Wow. Okay. Got the place already, and
Yeah, it's very soon. It's very, very soon.
that
So
is,
my apartment right now is chaos because everything is in boxes.
and you be hitting the road pretty soon, I'd imagine.
Yeah, well, I'm hitting the sky and all my
Ah,
stuff is hitting the road.
that's probably the better way to go.
I have a cat, and so it's like I can't. If I didn't, I would just drive out myself and save a lot of money on movers, but
I
I
suppose.
can't. He's really high maintenance. So I don't think he can't rough it in a truck for 2 days.
No, I don't think that would be safe.
Mhm.
That would
Mhm.
probably, people might frown upon that.
Yeah. Yeah. So we need to fly.
Yes. Well, so I guess, how do you prioritize what comes first, what comes second? Especially, you're going to get here just as programming is pretty much done for the year, for the school year, and kids start to scatter. I guess, what does the ramp up look like for you?
I don't fully know, because I suppose that depends on what my soon to be bosses tell me that it's going to look like. But
Okay.
I think what I would like to do is definitely visit camps, and then actually something that I have done in the past, in past roles, that is really important to me, is getting the teen board together like late summer,
Okay.
and doing kind of like I don't like a retreat, I guess you could call it, where like we're doing team building stuff, we're doing practicing writing programs, and like just doing fun stuff. Like one year I took one of my boards of kids to the state fair. We had like 2 days where we were doing mock like programming, and they were presenting their ideas, and we were doing brainstorms, we were making goals, and things like that. And then we did a day where I took them to the state fair, and we had like dinner and Havdalah at my house. So it all comes down to relationship building.
Absolutely. No,
Like,
absolutely.
that's the main theme in all of my answers.
How do you help get the kids? And I think there was a certain degree, like some of the, you know, grown-ups that are part of the program sort of out of the mode of doing things a certain way because that's the way they've been done before in the past.
Well, I think doing things the way they've been done in the past is kind of out the window at this at this
You would think so, but again, and I don't know, but I do, that I still hear that every once in a while, like, especially in the organizational world, that things just get done because that's how people are used to doing that.
Mhm. Mhm. Well, I think this is a great, like, this time, as much as, as difficult and horrible as COVID has been, this is a great time for organizations to say, okay, actually we've been doing, we've had to go remote, or we've had to do virtual programming. We've done X, Y, and Z differently. And the world has continued to turn. And in fact, like, I have been part of some really great virtual programming, or some really great like outdoor, like just things that you would think like, oh, this is a substitute, or this isn't like how we've done it as an ideal, that have actually turned out very successfully and are continuing forward. So I think just making sure to think through any new ideas, and be able to present those in a well thought out way, so that nothing is like half baked. I think the current environment is really kind of priming people naturally just to be more open to that.
Well, I think it's an obviously exciting opportunity and an exciting time because I think I think they need those sort of relationships. And I think
Mhm.
that over the course of the last couple of years, it's obviously been a lot more of a challenge to build to build the
Mhm.
bridges and create the relationships that kids that age need.
Mhm. Mhm.
So it'll be obviously a really interesting opportunity,
Mhm.
hopefully.
For sure. For sure. And I really feel strongly that kids just need their peers and their friends
Mhm.
more than ever. Um, so it is the idea of being able to be back together like fully is very, very exciting.
I know. I hope that it holds and we're still able
Yeah.
to. I
Mhm.
mean, that's always the thing. It's, we hope for the best and we
Yeah,
plan for
but
the
you
best, but
never know. You never know. There's like the um the cases of monkeypox now.
oh yeah, I'm not even getting into
Oh my god, I
that
can't
mess,
even.
right?
Oh my god.
Yeah, I don't even want to get into that. That's crazy.
Forget it. I forget I said it. Forget I said
No,
it.
no, I
I said too
mean,
much.
listen, there's always I think we've learned there's always going to be something else on the horizon. If these last couple of years have taught us anything,
Mhm.
and hopefully that it's hopefully not as terrible as that, but
Mhm.
there's always going to be something out there.
Mhm.
Oh, that just took a really sort of dark
A
turn.
dark turn. A dark
That took
turn.
a weird turn. Thanks, monkeypox. Uh okay, so all right, let me ask you, you've sort of done a lot of work in the Jewish world. You've done some stuff in the mental health world as well. What was it that I guess in your schooling or background or training, I guess, which path had you sort of maybe thought you might go down when you were going through school at the U?
Oh gosh. I feel I changed my mind. So there was like a time in my life where I really like was seriously considering trying to go to cantorial school. There was also um a time where like I was thinking I was going to go to grad school for social work or for clinical counseling. So I don't think I've ever really had like a clear decision between the two. I've always just been like on the fence between like straddling between those two fields.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. There was a time where I was like, oh, I'm going to be a choir teacher. I'm going to major in vocal education and be a choir teacher. But I think that ultimately youth work kind of is the best of both of those worlds, and that like when you're a youth director, whether you're in the Jewish world or not, any kind of community position with young people, they're going to come to you, right? With
Yeah.
like, because if you're doing your job right, you're a safe adult for them. That like, if there's something that they are needing advice on, or they're needing a listening ear about, or they're needing like you're a person in their life, and it really really helps and behooves anyone who is working with teens to have some knowledge of basic mental health care, mental health first aid, because I've had, and not to take a dark yet another dark turn, but I've had situations where teens were really struggling, where whether it's like, well, Rachel, can we talk, like I'm really having a hard time with my parents divorcing, or I've been I've had multiple kids come to me feeling like they were just having feelings of being suicidal, or having like kids have just as many difficulties and hardships as adults do. And so I think that knowledge and experience has been so helpful to me in outside of the mental health field, being in the
Hmm.
Jewish youth field, just being able to feel like I can field those situations in an informed way and know, I guess just have a knowledge base and know kind of best practices in having some of those conversations with kiddos and teens.
And I think that is important background, and I know it is a slightly dark turn, but it's obviously really important just because I think you read enough stuff online just about the mental health struggles of kids, especially through these last couple of years. And I mean, I'm looking forward to when this is, pandemic is really over and can stop harping on the last couple of years, but it's
these
also
unprecedented times.
I would like precedented times.
And now more than ever. Those two phrases, every time I hear them, I just want to
I know. Pick your cliche that you never want to hear again. But I do think that those skill sets are really important because, I mean, I think it has, and I am of an age where I grew up, there was no internet. So there was no social media. And so I think the challenges that come along with having kids having those outlets is at times very problematic.
Oh yeah. And not even just social media, but also just having access to everything all the time. Like I don't know if you have seen the Bo Burnham special on Netflix that came out maybe like a year and a half, maybe.
I have not. I've heard enough about it.
There's a song about the internet where the lyrics are like, it's a little bit of everything all of the time. And it like our brains were not meant to be taking in everything all of the time at all. They were not meant to be texting every second of the day. And, they're just not meant for that. And they're not meant to be inundated with news all the time. So even if these were precedented times, I think there are still plenty of challenges, just in terms of mental health and especially for kids and teens just to go around. And then you add in the unprecedented times into the mix, and then it's just crazy.
So what you're saying is everything is awful.
Just
kidding. I'm not.
Yes, and yes, and we have to work on changing that.
Yes.
And that's, I think, where all of these really relationship-based professions and roles come in, and where strong communities like Adath and just the Twin Cities Jewish community in general are crucial and are so crucial in I guess the march forward towards not awful, towards dare I say good.
Boy, you're really going out there on a limb, aren't you? But on a happier note, you gave us a glass half full way to end, though. That was good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I am optimistic. I am very optimistic because just in working with kids and teens, there's never a moment where I'm like, well, I don't know about these kids. I don't know, they're not going to be I have so many moments with Jewish kids and teens that are like, wow, these kids are so much more informed or engaged civically than I was at that age, that it's like, how can you not have hope and faith in them for kind of fixing a lot of the things that need fixing in this world?
Very true. And just like that, we turned the whole podcast around. It was going dark, and then you salvaged it. That was great.
I do what I can for the people.
That was fantastic. Last two questions though, and we will let you get back to packing, because by the time people listen to this, your stuff may be on its way to Minnesota.
It may even be there already.
It may. That's true. This is going to air this coming Monday.
Oh, okay. So my stuff will be en route.
Okay.
And it will arrive the next day, just in time.
Perfect. So yes, by the time this by the time people listen to this, your stuff will be on its way and you will possibly be here by then.
I will be there.
You will be here, which is very exciting. All right, last couple. What is your favorite Jewish holiday?
I think Passover or Rosh Hashanah. I feel those are probably kind of like cliche ones, but I really love them because those are the holidays that I come home for, even when living away. And so I just really love the family time and the food.
And on the food note, what is your favorite Jewish food?
Matzo ball soup.
Anyone's in particular? And this is my opportunity to pit your family members against each other, depending on how you answer.
I'm usually the soup maker in my family.
Oh, even better.
Yeah. And so I'm always the one making soup for holidays, but I will say that I feel very strongly about fluffy matzo balls. Like like my dad, for instance, likes the really dense, like ones that sink. And I'm like, that's disgusting. Like,
okay. All right, let me ask you then, because I've had inconsistencies with my matzo ball making. Mm-hmm. What's the secret to a fluffy matzo ball?
When you're forming them, you have to be very gentle. You can't like pack it together, right? Like then it's gonna stay packed together. You just like very, very gently, like barely even form it into a ball. Just like grab a bit of the whatever mixture or I don't know if you call it batter for like matzo balls.
I was gonna say batter doesn't sound right, but like dough.
Dough doesn't sound right.
Dough doesn't sound right either. No.
Like you just grab a little bit of the mixture and just pat it enough so that it's like in one piece and plop it in. Like you don't, like. You don't
want to overwork it.
Yeah.
Okay. Mixture. I think mixture is a good way to, it's not a batter. It's not a dough. It's just stuff.
Just a thing. Yeah. It's just the stuff mixed together.
Just the stuff. Well, Rachel Sher, thank you so much for coming and chatting with me today, and mazel tov to you on the job and this opportunity, and we can't wait to see you around town once you get here.
Oh my gosh, thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Lonnie. I appreciate it.
The Who the Folk podcast is part of the Jew Folk Podcast Network, a product of Jew Folk Inc. Please subscribe, rate, and review the show wherever you get your podcasts. If you have suggestions for other podcast guests, please email them to me at editor@tcjewfolk.com. For our other shows, check out tcjewfolk.com/podcast.